I want to go over with you the first part of the game design plan. So the first part is a story. Fairly self-explanatory, but if you had listened to the first video that I had put in there on the overview of the cycle, you're going to come up with a story that for right now is basically kind of the summary of your entire game. Minimum of 2 to 3 paragraphs. You're going to need to have enough story that you're going to then break it down into 5 different sections, 5 different levels, where you basically introduce and discuss what the story, the character is going to, who the character is, and what their ultimate goal is, what kind of climax is coming into the story, or what do they need to overcome, and what is the ultimate goal of the story. So I have a couple of examples here that I just wanted to show you their storyline. So I'm going to leave them up. You can pause it and read through it as you need to. So in this verse of the story, as you can see from the title already, you're going on a mission to find someone. Now, when you're writing a story, you need to remember the guidelines of the GameStar. You can't do any kind of copyright infringement. You need to change some names if you're going to emulate a similar story. You can't use each other's names or your own name in it, especially not your last names. So you're coming up with your own fictionalized story. Minimum of 2 to 3 paragraphs. So here's one example. Here's another example. And here's a third example. So hopefully this gives you a general idea of what I'm looking for in your storyline. Now, moving on to the next section where you are figuring out your avatars and your enemies. You need to describe and name them. This is why I've provided you with this link to all of the different items that you can get in your toolbox. Being that you've finished the first quest, you have plenty to make a perfectly good game. However, you might want to add in some other things. How do you do that? You need to play more of the quest. So, using this guide, you can go in and take a look at the different things that you earn through the different missions that you are doing. Now, if you pay attention, you should be able to figure out the different abilities of each of the avatars and enemies as you're needing. So, for this first one, it's going to be one that just walks around. It's called a jumper, so it obviously can jump. We're going to talk more specifically the different types of platforms. Marksman, this one can fire. This one runs around. Uh, the different components that you can get, so your points and so on and so forth, blocks, your different rules and goals, backgrounds, and the like. As you start to go through this, basically what I am looking for you to do is something similar to what this example is. Your main character, your avatar. Tell me about them. Tell me which one you're going to use. Now, you're obviously going to probably call this whatever your main character is. Like, for example, in the one story, this would be Joey moves in all of the other directions, has high health, damage potential, and so on and so forth. You can use multiple avatars per level. You can't switch them out within the level, but you can switch them between. You can't use the same exact avatar throughout. You're going to have at least one different, because I am going to require that you give me 2 different platform types. One that can jump, which is platformer, and one that just walks around, which is top down. So between your 5 levels, you're going to have a minimum of 2 different characters. that you're going to be using. It's still your main player. They're just going to have different abilities within each of their levels. Enemies and bosses. You're not required to have enemies and bosses in every single one of your levels. However, I would like to see that you have used them at some point within your game. Non-player characters. Now these are completely optional. This is a character that you're actually taking an enemy, removing all the damage out that it can do to you, and it can be used as anything that you want to create. Say you need to create a crowd, or you want to be able to walk up and talk to somebody. So what you would do is you would put a non-player character that has no damage, that doesn't necessarily move around, that's standing next to a message block so that you can walk up to them and talk to them. The next section are the message blocks. You should have at this point played the three-part narrative from your projects. This will show you every single way that you can use a message block, because that does, the Mrs. Pickleton story shows you every single way. You can use it as a sign, you can use it as creating a trivia, you can use it as continuing your story, you can warn, you can direct, all the different things. So if you take a look at some of the examples that I'm going to show you now for your message blocks, minimum of 3 per level. Now the message blocks are what the player reads while they're playing, not before they start a level or at the end of a level. It is during gameplay. So this is information that they need to know while they are in there. Now this is a draft. This is something that can be changed later on. In Joey's, you can see that they went a little bit different with using the story, a little more directing, or creating of signposts kind of throughout the story. And then in this one, this is where they kind of talk to you in some examples. So if there's kind of, you can kind of create a dialogue sort of as you are creating your message blocks for your level. This last section I'm actually going to discuss in a separate video. So you should be good to go with doing your message block.